I mean, it was a big surprise, wasn't it, in 1988 when the Russians pitched up at Farnborough with these two MiGs. I mean, it was the first time in the West, we'd seen any of their military airplanes up close too. I mean, I guess the odd military attaché and semi-professional spy wandering around Russia had seen a few things, but the ordinary bulk of the guys, you know, in the aircraft industry in the West had not seen these things. Come Paris the following year, they not only brought a couple of MiGs, they the Russians, but of course Sukhoi turned up with Su-27. And I shall never forget watching his first display at Paris. I was standing on the British Aerospace Chalet with a whole raft of very senior people, some of them service officers, Royal Air Force officers, some of them designers and test pilots in British Aerospace. And Victor Pugachev, who was their chief test pilot, he did a 360, just an ordinary 360-degree turn in this thing. And Peter Martin, who was a big friend of mine, and we'd been on a Hunter squadron together, he looked up from his watch and he said, "That only took 10 seconds. Now, a 360-degree turn done in 10 seconds means that you have an average turn rate of 36 degrees a second. We at that time were hoping that our next generation fighter airplane would be able to achieve 25. Here was an airplane, you know, I mean, and turning to, when you have forward-facing armament is what it's all about. You've got to turn to bring your armament to bear on the enemy. And he said, that was 10 seconds. And at that point, the chap broke onto the downwind leg and we thought it was all over, he's just going to land now. And then suddenly on the downwind leg, this airplane just went like this. And flew around the corner and landed. And we couldn't believe what we had seen. It may seem a little strange if I say that what you see at an air show has implications for what a military airplane can do in war. Because some people would see an air show as just a circus act. But if you're an insider and if you're in the business of developing and flight testing fighters, you can recognize limits on how those airplanes are maneuvered. And equally, you can recognize when the limits are not there. And we saw these aircraft being taken to the vertical, come to a stop, slide back down, light the reheat, and fly away. Not once, not twice, but time after time, routinely. Now, this particular maneuver is a very demanding one, not as you enter it, but as you recover from it for any jet fighter. It's demanding because once the airplane has gone up here and stopped and starts to slide back, the only way out of this maneuver is to lower the nose. And as the airplane comes down like this, the air is coming at it from 90 degrees underneath. It is, if you like, fully stalled. Now, normally we only allow the air to come at our airplanes up to about 20 degrees, 20, 25. Why? Why do we have this angle of attack limit of 20, 25? Well, it means, it is because if you exceed that number, you're going to lose control of the aircraft, normally in roll, sometimes in yaw. Well, these guys were just doing this maneuver, seeing the 90 degrees angle of attack, falling down from dead steady, never any yaw off. They had got a symmetrical airflow on this airplane. How had they achieved it? Didn't know. What about the engines? As they were starting to slide back, they were lighting the reheat. You could physically see it. Now, our Western engines are normally very severely restricted in, or limited in how and when you can light the reheat. They didn't have any of these limits. So we were fascinated, and I thought this means that they can do manoeuvres, of course, in combat, which we wouldn't risk doing. Or, more importantly, even if they don't want to actually come to a stop, they are not all the time thinking in combat, I mustn't get my airspeed get below so much, I mustn't let the angle of attack get above so much, like you are in one of our traditional Western airplanes. So you've got half your mind thinking about the enemy when you fight a limited aircraft, an aircraft with hard limits on it. You've got half your mind thinking about what the enemy is doing, and half the mind thinking about what I must not do with my aeroplane from an aerodynamic point of view. That is not such a relaxed situation, of course, as sitting there thinking, well, I can do anything that is necessary in my attempt to follow this guy or to chase after him. So it just, it blew our minds what they had achieved.